On this edition of Defense News Weekly, we'll take a look at three key areas of Army modernization: a new long-range cannon, the future vertical lift effort, and how the service is working to upgrade Stryker combat vehicles. We'll also hear from the commander of Army Futures Command and hear why the Air Force has stopped accepting KC-46 aircraft again. With in-depth interviews, up-close video, and leading analysis, this is Defense News Weekly. Welcome to this week's edition of Defense News Weekly. I'm Jeff Martin. This week we'll be taking a look at some of the Army's top modernization priorities and sit down with the head of Army Futures Command, and then we'll hear directly from Army leadership on Capitol Hill. But first, here's some headlines. Congressional Democrats are proposing a bill to raise defense budget caps to $733 billion for this year, but that is likely to start a fight with the White House. Well, for the past 2 years, there has been a deal to raise the Budget Control Act caps. There isn't one yet for this year. And the combination of a democratically controlled House of Representatives and the president's unwillingness to compromise will mean a nasty political fight over the proposed $750 billion defense budget. And after many warnings, the U.S. has stopped delivery of F-35 aircraft parts to Turkey in retaliation for Turkey's ongoing purchase of a Russian-made air and missile defense system. The U.S. concern stems from the fact that Turkey is operating both advanced Russian and American systems, would give Moscow a backdoor look into the secrets of the F-35 and allow them to find ways to counter the jet. While Turkey has taken delivery of 2 fighters already, those jets are at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona for training, and U.S. officials say that Turkey's entire participation in the program is at risk. And the Air Force has stopped accepting KC-46 tankers over foreign object debris again. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson told lawmakers this week on Capitol Hill that the service had discovered more FOD in closed compartments on delivered aircraft. While the Air Force just started deliveries on the jet in January, they stopped weeks later due to FOD, only to resume on March 11th. Wilson says that the Air Force expects excellence, and in a statement, Boeing said they could do better. This is another delay and hurdle for the KC-46 program, which is years behind schedule and over budget. And as tensions between India and Pakistan remain, the United States has cleared a request from India to buy 24 new MH-60R Seahawk helicopters for an estimated $2.6 billion. The choppers would be used for anti-surface and anti-submarine warfare missions, as well as other support roles. However, it's important to note that the deal is not yet final, and the total price will likely change. In addition, it has to be approved by Congress. One of the most high-profile Army programs is the service's role in the future vertical lift effort. While the main focus right now is the Joint Multi-Role Demonstrator program, the service's Aviation Modernization Chief, Brigadier General Wally Rugen, is also working to stand up the first 2 programs of record for the effort. At the AUSA Global Force Symposium in Huntsville, he took the time to sit down with Jen Judson. Here's a look at part of that interview.
What worked with JMR and that 4.5 years to flight, we're taking the same team and the same timeline, and we're adding some robustness to it. So instead of a tech demonstrator, the FARA aircraft will be competitive prototypes. So we'll be competing off the bat where JMR was not, and we'll be prototyping where before kind of a lower bar was a tech demonstrator. And so that is all baked in with the same team. And so as far as our leader development and kind of talent management, that's not a small aspect of our program. We feel we have the talent and the leaders to deliver a better product quicker. That solicitation went out last year, to a great fanfare, and we appreciate the coverage on that. The offerings are in, and we're in source selection. We should down select in the coming months, and award up to 6 offers and move forward. In March of 2020, we currently anticipate we will down select to 2 vendors who will be selected for the competitive prototyping phase of the OTA.
Okay. And how many prototypes are they each going to build if selected?
I think we're still in negotiations, and we're still working through that.
Okay. Yeah, so that is very interesting that you're moving into a prototyping phase immediately. With FLRAA, are you looking at a competition where you would also be doing some sort of competitive prototyping? What are you looking at for that?
Again, I think we're looking at multiple ways. The interesting thing is Congress has given us some great authorities to do rapid acquisition, and we are going through those exhaustively to come up with the best cost and schedule that we can do in a as rapid a fashion as possible to get after, you know, capability development. So I think it's a bit premature to say what exactly we're going to do, but that plan is ongoing, and it's deep planning across the multi-services and the department as well.
A long-range cannon isn't a new idea, but a long-range cannon with precise targeting, now that's something the U.S. Army is very interested in. At the Global Force Symposium in Huntsville, Jen Judson caught up with the Army's long-range fires modernization leader, Colonel John Rafferty, to talk about the Army's new Supergun.
The extended range cannon artillery team demonstrated in excess of 70 kilometers of range at Yuma Test Center, and then a 62-kilometer target hit. So the 70-kilometer range demonstration was with the new projectile that's part of this extended range cannon artillery system, right? Because it's much about the platform as it is about the ammunition and about the propellant. So the XM1113 is the high explosive projectile that's designed to withstand the muzzle velocities and the spin rates that come out of this new cannon tube and new propellant to get out to that 70 kilometers of range. We still have a long way. We still got some work ahead on the precision guidance kit that'll give it the accuracy at those ranges. So integrating that onto that projectile is you know, it's funded. We're working on it. It's going to be challenging because we're operating in thinner air, and so the canards that help guide the projectile don't have as much air to work with, you know, so right, absolutely. So we're operating in space that we haven't been before. I'm sorry, space in altitudes that we hadn't before with this, you know, with this particular fuse, and so it's going to operate differently, and so we'll work on the integration of that. But 2023, we're going to put a battalion of Urca cannons in the field, and it's going to have a 70-kilometer capability, and it's going to have accuracy. So it's going to have the fuse integrated. It's going to have the supercharge ready to go, and we're going to learn from that battalion. So we're under 804 authority for this. So we've got you know, rapid prototyping, and those first couple prototypes will be delivered at the end of this year, and we're also working with Forces Command. In fact, it was just a topic at the panel a little bit ago that Forces Command is hosting, and it's our partnership with the operational force to help iterate designs of prototypes. At the same time, we don't want to jeopardize near-term readiness by distracting our forces who, you know, are consumed by being ready. And so you don't want to take them off their game by introducing new capabilities. Yet we want their feedback. So what I think we're getting for, you know, we get this first prototype delivered is we want a howitzer section to take a look at this thing. So, you know, the section chief, the staff sergeant, and all his cannoneers to get on this thing and give us just some initial feedback. We're going to have them spend weeks and weeks driving it around. That's not where we're...
Do you plan on taking that somewhere, you know, in exercises in Europe or the Pacific, or is this something that you'd be doing stateside?
So I think that'll be stateside. But where it gets fielded is still, you know, that's something we've got to work out. And it's obvious why we're making these things is we've got to compete. We've got to compete in this great power competition. And so the Urca Cannon first Battalion in 2023.
The Stryker is one of the most recognizable vehicles the Army has, and right now the service is looking to both make them more lethal and protect them better. Here's a look at where they stand in making all of that happen.
Okay, so I think that's a good segue to ask you about, you know, one of the systems that we have in the field now, which is the Stryker. You're working towards finding an active protection system for that, an interim active protection system, as the Army develops sort of a next generation version of that. And you're also looking at its lethality. So it's my understanding that there's a decision coming soon for the Stryker lethality. So can you speak to where you are with that decision?
Sure, and as told Jen, the Stryker lethality decision is imminent. The Army senior leaders decided last year that, one, they wanted to continue the mobility of and go with the DVHA-1, the double V hull, for the Stryker, in getting the age of the vehicle and the mobility back in. But then they wanted to take a deliberate process, kind of like we're doing right now with the cross-functional team of getting assessments from the field. We used the 2nd Cav Regiment over in Germany, and we did in a deliberate fashion, gave them the Dragoon systems. And what the Army said is, we're going to take a look at them using those in operational environments, get feedback from the commanders in the Corps Commander from General Volesky at Joint Base Lewis McChord, and have the Army make an informed decision on what the lethality package should be for the Stryker. We've had a periods of sessions on what that approach would look like. We'll continue doing what the Army decided last year with the double VHA-1, the DVHA-1, and then the 30 millimeter 173 solutions, and how many brigades do we move forward with. We've had all those meetings, and the decision right now is, General Coffin was mentioned of the trade space of where our budget and funding goes, about how many brigades and what the strategy is to upgrade our DVHA-1s with the new lethality package, and how many of them we're going to have. And it's the decision is coming out hopefully while we're here at AUSA in Huntsville this week.
Okay. And I know while you're quickly fielding trophy onto Abrams tanks, and you've made a decision on the Bradley APS system, you're still looking for a potential APS system for Stryker. Can you tell me where you are with that?
Sure. We got a lot of efforts ongoing. We're supporting General Kaufman's efforts with Next Gen Combat Vehicle and where he wants to go with an APS. We have a program of record with what's called MAPS, and then you already mentioned we have Trophy, and then we're looking at the Iron Fist with Bradley, and then when we get to more of our wheeled and lighter vehicles like Stryker, we're still looking for other expedited systems that we can need for our other platforms. And ongoing testing is still taking place to this day, and we're going to continue to experiment until we find the right solutions for the lighter vehicles and getting more integrated and less heavy systems on our platform, and that can adapt to the threats that we're going up against with those systems as well.
Now, I know there's supposed to be a demonstration of a couple of different systems for Stryker. Were you satisfied potentially with what you saw there, or are you looking beyond what has been presented at the demonstration and potentially hoping that there's something else out there?
We're satisfied with every demonstration, every experiment that we do. We continue to learn until we find a system that's optimized for the Stryker platform. And we'll continue to do that.
Will you be bringing in any new systems to look at?
We're still looking at the current schedule we have right now. We're looking at some systems, and then we'll continue to think about going out and look for others if needed.
To keep up to date with all of our coverage, be sure to visit our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. Also, be sure to add us on Apple's News app and other platforms for the latest updates. And when we come back, we'll sit down with General Mike Murray, the commander of Army Futures Command. General Mike Murray is the first commanding general of Army Futures Command and is in charge of all of the Army's modernization work. As his organization gets closer to being fully operational, he talked to Jen Judson about where things stand.
Obviously, the Army conducted these night courts that took a look at every single program, through a lens of, how does this contribute to lethality and our modernization efforts. So they freed up a lot of money, billions of dollars to put towards modernization, but we've got maybe some more budget uncertainty heading into the next POM. What are you doing as a modernization entity to sort of counter, potentially prepare for possible budget issues that we may encounter in the future?
So so Dr. Jetty and I have now gone through everything but the special access programs in terms of the same type of scrub we did last year. And we're taking back a much smaller set, the chief and the secretary, where really, and it's really the 4 stars have a difference of opinion because all the 4 stars get a vote on all the pegs now.
Okay.
It is a much smaller number because we can generally work through issues and come to agreement. In terms of budget uncertainty, I'm actually scrubbing each of the cross-functional teams' efforts to make sure we're not asking for more than we actually need. In some cases, we found some money that we can give back to the Army to fund some priorities, but lesser priorities. And then we are finding, and I don't have the number yet because we're not done, some more resources that we can apply either to cross-functional team priorities, probably in the out years in terms of numbers of production. That's one way to speed up, not necessarily the first one, but maybe the 100th one.
Sure.
And then to also because we are also, and we have for the last 3 or 4 years, built a Palm BCA, or a BCA Palm.
Okay, yeah.
So if BCA was enacted, and we've always used that kind of between, this is what we think we're going to have, this is what it could be, and then generally we always kind of end up in the middle someplace.
Yeah.
So, and it's easier, once you have that lower Palm built to kind of make those adjustments.
Okay. So you've really honed in on the material priorities, the equipment
You
side.
honed me in on the material priorities.
How are you ensuring that you're aligning all of this across the .mil PF? You have your doctrine, your concept, your warfighting concept. It seems like a very tangled web in my head. So how is Army Futures Command playing a part in just making sure everything sort of lines up? Modernization, strategy, concept, doctrine.
So concepts will lead to doctrine, but I've told lots of people this is multi-domain operations. The concept of multi-domain operations is the foundation of everything else we're doing. So, as a great example is we go through the EEPEG this year. We have started with a partnership between TRADOC, Futures and Concepts, Eric Wesley, Army Futures Command, the Army G3, a couple elements within the Army G3, and the Army G8 started to work towards an organizational construct of what the Army is just a first swag could and probably should look like in 2028 or so. Different than what it looks today.
Yeah.
Right now we're organized around brigade combat teams. Is that the right way to go forward or not? That's the fundamental question.
Yeah.
We started to look at the schedules for when the programs and the lines of effort the CFTs are working, when they'll get to the field and where those would necessarily go against those units, against a specific MDO op plan. And it's going to take synchronization across the Army staff and the ACOMs to really kind of synchronize this. But TRADOC does remain responsible for .mil PF integration. And when we publish the Army Modernization Strategy this summer, Army Modernization, the next version 1.5, it will be a cross .mil PF look. So we're not doing TRADOC's job for them. We're just our analysis of where we need to synchronize across.
Yeah, you all need to have clarity across.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. The Rapid Capabilities Office has actually now changed their name.
Yes.
And also it sounds like now they're very focused on Army Futures Command and what you're doing and how they can help. It's my understanding that there's a priorities list or something in the works to be delivered to the new Rapid Capabilities Office, RICTO, at some point soon. Can you talk a little bit about what any of those priorities may be that RICTO will be focused on initially? I know hypersonics in space, maybe a few.
Yeah.
But what do you really hope for the office to be able to focus on now that they've
So we stood up a PEO hypersonics down here in Huntsville, and so where that program eventually ends up, we'll see. Space, we have Mr. Willie Nelson kind of working that for us down here in Huntsville. Directed energy, I would throw on that list.
Okay.
And so, those could all end up as part of the Rapid Capabilities Office, because I'm not sure exactly what RICTO stands for.
Yeah. I think it's Rapid Capabilities Concepts or Technologies or something.
Technologies, but anyway.
I'm still trying to remember it.
So, those could all end up there, but I think and I have seen, and I'm not sure if the Secretary signed it or not, sort of a memorandum on how this is going to work.
Okay.
So, Board of Directors will ultimately decide what falls in their portfolio and what they work on.
Right.
So, Dr. Jetty's on that Board of Directors, the Secretary is on that Board of Directors, the Chief, it may be the Under and the Vice acting in their stead, and I'm on the Board of Directors. Right. So, there will be a decision by the senior leadership on exactly what falls in and out of their portfolio.
Okay, okay. And my last question, there's been a lot of foreign interest in some of the modernization efforts, namely like next generation combat vehicle. We saw a lot of that at AUSA, particularly companies that have formed partnerships with U.S. companies to bring the technology in. We saw Lynx, which is Rheinmetall's vehicle, and they're teaming with Raytheon. So I'm curious, since foreign companies seem to be very interested in how to play in the U.S. Army's modernization efforts, there's always that complication of foreign companies wanting to keep their best technology, in their country, as we do with ours. So, in considering foreign technology, what are you thinking about in terms of Army modernization to ensure that, if we go with foreign technology, that we're getting the best technology that we possibly could?
So we've been down this path before. I mean, the Stryker was built in Canada with Trophy is obviously an Israeli system that we've incorporated into the Abrams. There are challenges, and just about every time I've got involved with this, there's been one or two challenges we've had to kind of knock down.
Yeah.
And I do think the Army's new IP policy kind of plays in this too, that we're interested in the IP we need. The best example is aircraft engine. I mean, I don't need all of the data on an aircraft engine, but I do need enough data that I can maintain it in my depots.
Okay.
And then most of them are partnering with American firms, and everybody I've talked to have assured us that, if selected, production, they would onshore production, so production would occur inside the United States. So it's never without problems, but we've been able to work through most of it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
And coming up, we'll hear from the Army's top leaders when they visited Capitol Hill. On this week's Money Minute, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack offers her latest tips.
About 95% of Americans have cell phones. Add to that the fact that nearly half of all phone calls are scams. That means you're likely to be targeted. So how do you deal? Just staying alert can help. Scammers are always coming up with new tactics. They may call you and impersonate your bank or credit union, or pose as a government agency. They're also known to call from numbers that have the same area code as yours. So if you don't know the number, don't pick it up. If you're not sure, be aware the caller could be recording your voice to steal your identity. So listen first. Don't say anything. If the caller is not for you, hang up right away. There are proactive ways to combat scammers using your phone. Sign up for text or email alerts on your cards and accounts, so you're quickly warned of any unauthorized activity. Remember, if you think you're a victim of fraud or identity theft, call your financial institution right away so you can take action together and secure your accounts.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more defense news coverage, be sure to visit our website at defensenews.com and subscribe to our Early Bird Brief, delivered to your inbox every weekday morning to get you ready to start the day. And coming up, we'll hear from the Army's top leaders when they visited Capitol Hill. It's posture season on Capitol Hill, meaning military leaders are defending their budget requests in front of Congress. Here's a look at some highlights from a recent hearing featuring the Army.
I represent the state of Pennsylvania, and one of the things that's been striking to me is that in the most recent round of budgeting, there's been a reduction or no longer an ask for the Chinook upgrades, for armored multi-purpose vehicle upgrades and Bradley upgrades. And all of those things were, as of 18 months ago, in the prioritization of the budget, and I think have caused a lot of consternation in the Pennsylvania supply chain, I can tell you. And so my question to you is, what changed, over the last 18 months, I guess Secretary Esper in general, that would have made you change your minds about the importance of these upgrades?
Congresswoman, I'll go first. I would say a few things. First of all, clear guidance from Secretary Mattis at the time with regard to our direction, followed up by the National Defense Strategy, which said shift from 18, 19 years of counterinsurgency warfare to high-intensity conflict.
If we do not shift, if we continue to produce legacy systems, then we're going to really put at risk, significant risk, very, very high risk, the first battle of the next war, where soldiers that are probably yet unborn will be fighting with equipment that we see today. And that will not be a good thing, as you well know from your own service. So we've made a conscious, very, very difficult decision to shift gears and start laying the groundwork to fund the modernization of the United States Army.
And I really understand that hard decisions need to be made. And I guess one of my questions to you is, was there any consideration in making these hard decisions about the impact on the supply chain or the industrial base in those decisions?
Absolutely. That was discussed at great length, extraordinary pain, led by Secretary Esper and the whole Army staff, civilian and military, in massive amounts of hours. I can't even describe the level of pain that was throughout all that discussion. Absolutely, yes.
I would add as well, we had a number of conversations with the private sector, particularly with CEOs and senior leaders from, I think, some of the companies you're referring to. We could only be as transparent as we could with regard to particular cuts, but we were very clear with regard to where we're going, those 6 modernization priorities. And as I and the chief, other senior leaders have messaged for well over a year, that's where we're going. There's predictability. Those priorities are not changing, and that's where we're shifting $30 billion into the future. So meet us there. Come talk to us about how you can be a player in that future, because whoever gets on that bus will have a franchise or work or whatever you want to call it for decades to come after that, because that's our new direction.
That's all we have time for this week, but if you want to see and read more, be sure to visit our website, defensenews.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.